Marlon Brando, an icon, a genius, the Godfather himself, a man whose very gaze made all of Hollywood tremble. To the rest of the world, he was a god, untouchable, all-powerful, and larger than life. But if you had walked into his mansion on that fateful night in 1990, you wouldn't have found a legend. You would have seen a broken, aging man on his knees, begging doctors and lawyers to save his son from a prison cell and his daughter from the brink of madness. His entire life was one long escape. He despised his father, a cruel, violent alcoholic who treated Marlon like dirt under his boots. And on the day Marlon first held his firstborn son, Christian, he made a solemn vow. This shadow will never touch my family. I am going to burn this curse to the ground. He truly believed he could be a saint for his children. And that was his fatal mistake. Brando never realized that his own fame, his emotional distance, and his inner demons became a prison for his kids, one far more terrifying than his father's belt. This is the story of how the most famous vow in Hollywood history turned into a death sentence. It's about how the Godfather ended up destroying the very things he tried so hard to protect with his own two hands. Today, I'm going to tell you how the Brando dynasty really collapsed while the rest of the world was busy applauding. Trust me, you wouldn't wish this script on your worst enemy.
To understand why Marlon Brando's life eventually turned into a wreckage, we have to go back to the very beginning, to a cramped apartment in Omaha, Nebraska. On the surface, it probably looked like any other home in the 1920s, but inside those walls, it was ice cold. Marlon, known to his family as Bud Sr., was a hard, callous man who lacked even a drop of empathy. He was a traveling salesman, often gone for weeks, but whenever he came home, the house turned into a war zone. He was the kind of man who believed you could only build a real man through humiliation. He constantly mocked little Marlon, calling him worthless and talentless, picking apart every move he made and every look on his face. To Bud, his father wasn't a protector. He was a storm cloud that could strike with lightning at any second. Then there was his mother, Dodie. She was a delicate, artistic soul, and it's from her that Marlon inherited his love for beauty. But Dodie had a dark secret of her own, one that poisoned the boy's childhood even more than his father's belt. She struggled with a heavy addiction that back then people simply didn't talk about in polite society. Marlon often recalled how as a young child, he would have to wander through every dive bar in town just to find his mother passed out. He'd bring her home, tuck her in, and take care of her, only for her to wake up the next morning with no memory of what happened. And right there, in the middle of that chaos, a legendary actor was born. Do you know how it happened? Marlon started mimicking animal sounds, making faces, and playing different characters for one reason only: to distract his mother from her craving for a drink. He was literally performing to keep her from fading away. His genius wasn't just a gift from above, it was a child's defense mechanism, a desperate attempt to save the person he loved most. This childhood trauma created a dangerous cocktail of rage and vulnerability inside Brando. He hated his father, yet he spent his life starving for the approval he never got. When Marlon grew up and headed to New York to conquer the stage, he brought all that emotional baggage with him. Even after becoming a massive star in A Streetcar Named Desire, deep down, he was still that same scared little kid named Bud. And this brings us to the moment of truth. When his first son, Christian, was born, the past came rushing back with terrifying force. Brando looked at his child and saw a chance of redemption. He hated his own father so much that he decided to build a wall between his son and his past. He vowed that his heir would never know a cruel word or a heavy hand. But the irony of fate was that by rejecting his father's methods, Brando swung to the opposite extreme. He thought that if he gave his children unlimited freedom, endless money, and isolated them from the world on a private island, they would be happy. He didn't realize that a lack of boundaries and a father who was always checked out because of movie sets is its own form of psychological pressure. He was so terrified of being a tyrant that he ended up becoming a cold, distant god, someone his kids could never actually reach. His vow was sincere, but it was built on fear, and you can't build a healthy family on a foundation of fear. He wanted to break the chain, but he didn't notice that he had already become the first link in a new, even more complicated trap for his children. Fame hit Brando like an avalanche, and with it came the deluded sense that he could now dictate the rules of life itself. By the mid-60s, Marlon was no longer just an actor, he was a living monument, a larger-than-life myth. It was at this exact moment that he made the move that would seal his children's fate for decades to come. He bought the Tetiaroa Atoll in the South Pacific. For him, it was a getaway from filthy Hollywood, a place where he hoped to build a pure, untainted reality. He dreamed that his children, Christian and later Cheyenne, would grow up in this tropical paradise, far from the camera flashes, the hypocrisy, and the long shadow of his own past. Brando truly believed that if he physically moved his family to the other side of the world, the old demons of Nebraska wouldn't be able to find them. But the truth was, he brought those demons right along with him in his own suitcase. On that island, hidden from the world's eyes, a drama was unfolding that was far more terrifying than any of his movie roles. While Marlon was away on film sets for months at a time, his children were left in a bizarre vacuum. Christian grew up in an atmosphere of total permissiveness, but also total isolation. He was the son of a god who would occasionally descend from the heavens, shower him with expensive gifts, and then vanish over the horizon, leaving the boy alone with the staff and the endless boredom of the ocean. Marlon was so afraid of being strict like his own father that he abandoned discipline altogether. He thought freedom was the cure, but for his son's fragile mind, it became a slow-acting poison. He didn't know who he was without his last name, and that uncertainty began to rot him from the inside out. He started looking for ways to numb that inner void, using the same methods Marlon's mother Dodie once used. Genetic baggage and a psychological vacuum formed a fatal alliance. The situation spiraled even further when Cheyenne was born. She was his favorite, his little island princess, but her life was even more secluded. Marlon surrounded her with a fanatical level of protection that felt more like house arrest. He wanted her to stay pure and innocent, but the reality was that the girl was growing up in a world with no foundation, other than a temperamental and perpetually absent father. In this paradise exile, Brando's children were turning into mere shadows of their famous parent. They saw his triumphs on the screen. They saw him play the Godfather, embodying absolute power and family protection. But in reality, they saw a man who couldn't manage his own weight or his own depression. The contrast was unbearable. Christian began to show signs of aggression, trying to grab his father's attention by any means necessary, while Cheyenne retreated deeper into herself. Brando watched it happen, but instead of stepping in, he just bought them more things, built more houses on the island, and kept telling himself he was doing the right thing. He didn't realize that his absence in their lives wounded them just as deeply as his own father's physical presence had wounded him. The chain wasn't broken, it just changed shape. It went from iron shackles to a golden cage, where his children slowly lost their grip on reality, bracing for the horrific explosion that would eventually bury the remains of this hollow idol.
Then came May 16th, 1990, the date that forever split the Brando family's timeline into before and after. That evening, inside the luxurious Mulholland Drive mansion, a place that was supposed to be a fortress, a safe haven, a scene unfolded that belonged in the darkest of ancient tragedies. It all started with an ordinary family dinner. Christian, his sister Cheyenne, and her boyfriend Dag Drolet. At the time, Cheyenne was in an incredibly fragile state. She was pregnant, and her mental health was essentially fraying at the seams. During the evening, she complained to her brother that Dag was mistreating her, even claiming he had been physically abusive. For Christian, who had spent his life under the pressure of being the protector of the family legacy, while feeling deeply wounded and lost himself, this was the point of no return. He decided it was time to show the kind of masculine strength his father projected in the movies, the kind of strength that was so desperately missing from their real lives.
Christian went upstairs with a weapon in his hand. Later in court, he would claim he never intended to cause irreparable harm, that it was just an attempt to scare his sister's abuser, a struggle gone wrong. But a shot rang out. Dag Jolet stopped breathing instantly, right there in the living room of the great Marlon Brando. Marlon himself was in another part of the house at the moment. When he ran toward the sound and saw what had been done, the entire universe he had spent decades meticulously building crumbled into ash. And this is where the darkest part of the story emerges. Instead of acting like a law-abiding citizen, Brando flipped into Godfather mode. His first instinct wasn't to call the police, it was to hide the evidence, specifically the object that had fired the shot. He scrambled through the house, trying to direct reality, to scrub the scene, to protect his son the only way he knew how, through manipulation and control. Though some things simply cannot be hidden, when the police finally arrived, the world was rocked. Headlines screamed that the unthinkable had happened inside the home of a legend. For Marlon, it was the start of a long, grueling marathon through courtrooms that would cost him millions of dollars and any remaining peace of mind. He poured a fortune into the best lawyers, and he eventually took the stand himself. Tears streaming down his face, he admitted to the world, "I was a bad father, I failed." It was the public self-flagellation of a titan who realized that all his money, islands, and titles meant nothing if his own son was in handcuffs and his daughter was losing her mind to guilt and grief. Cheyenne never recovered. She felt responsible for the tragedy, and her condition spiraled day by day. No high-end clinic paid for by her father could bridge the void in her soul. Christian was sent away to a correctional facility, leaving Marlon alone in his massive empty house, surrounded by the ghosts of his own mistakes. He realized that in his attempt to run away from his father, he had run straight into him from the other side. His father destroyed lives through cruelty, but Marlon destroyed them through his absence and his inability to be a parent instead of a god on a pedestal. The pure bloodline he dreamed of was poisoned by the same venom of alienation he had swallowed as a child. The end came in 2004. By then, Marlon had almost no strength left to fight. His lungs failed, and his heart, worn out from decades of stress and grief, simply stopped beating. He passed away completely alone in a hospital room, leaving behind a massive estate that immediately became the subject of ugly legal battles among his relatives. No, the bitterest part wasn't the fight over the money. His firstborn, Christian, the son Marlon had once humbled himself in court to save, never found his way. He was released from prison, but he remained a broken man living on the fringes of society, passing away just a few years after his father in poverty and obscurity. The tragedy of the Brando line had come full circle. Marlon wanted to build a dynasty free from pain, but instead, he created a legend where an endless cry for help is hidden behind the glitter of gold statues. He remains in our memory as the greatest actor of all time, but in the book of his own life, he was the one who wrote the final, crushing word on the page titled Father. It was the end of a titan who won every battle against the world, but lost the only war that mattered, the war against himself.
Looking back at this story now, decades later, you realize that this isn't just a movie star's biography. It's a harsh lesson that Hollywood would rather forget. Marlon Brando spent his entire life and millions of dollars trying to prove that you can erase the past, that you can build paradise on a private island, and that you can save your children from bad genes. But reality was far more cynical. It proved that you can't buy your way out of destiny with a checkbook, and you can't hide from it behind the high gates of Mulholland Drive. All the glitz of his fame and the sheer power of his talent shattered against one simple truth. His children didn't need an icon. They didn't need the Godfather or a genius. They just needed a man who was there for them, without the masks and without the drama. The Brando tragedy teaches us that the loudest vows are often the most fragile. When we promise ourselves, "I will never be like my parents," we unwittingly tie ourselves to them with an invisible thread, continuing to fight an inner war long after they are gone.
Marlon was so consumed by this battle with his father's ghost that he didn't notice himself turning into a cold, unreachable shadow, a shadow his own children tried to escape by any means necessary, even through violence and self-destruction. This story reminds us that true freedom doesn't start with a flight to the other side of the world. It starts with healing the wounds we carry inside. If this deep dive made you look at The Godfather from a different, more human and chilling perspective, then maybe it's time to ask, what shadows from the past are still following us? Let me know in the comments. Do you believe in a family curse? Or do you think Brando was simply the architect of his own downfall? Your perspective matters, because in stories like this, there are no easy answers. Thank you for watching until the end. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss our next journey into the dark side of legendary lives. Take care of yourselves and your loved ones. I'll see you in the next video.